Hi everyone, today we're going to look at how to use Microsoft Forms within Glow. Now the first thing we have to do is first log into Glow, and from there we'll get access to all of the Microsoft tools that are available. So Forms isn't always easy to find on the Glow home screen, and from the Launchpad the first thing that I try to do is to find one of the Microsoft Office tools, such as SharePoint, Mail, anything like that. So if we click on Mail, for example, it'll take us into our mail icon, and from there we can use the Microsoft Waffle to find all of the other Office 365 tools, such as Forms. Now the Waffle is usually up the top left hand corner of the screen, and when we click on that we can see all of the other apps that we want to use. So click on Forms to get started. So if it's your first time in Forms, it will give you a little overview of what you can do there. So it says you can easily create quizzes, surveys and polls. So what we're going to do is start by creating a new form to get started. So this is the basic overview of Microsoft Forms when you're creating a brand new form. We can see at the top we have a space for writing a title. There's also an area for adding in new questions, and at the top right of that you can see there's another tab here for responses as well. Okay, so to get started, the first thing that we're going to do is give the form a title. So this means that you'll know what the form's called, and anybody else who's filling in the form will have a title and maybe a description of what the form's going to ask them to do. So this one's going to be a pupil survey, and we're just calling it for a test school. Sometimes you get little pop-ups that will block up, just click them to make them to go away. So when you're entering a description, it's just, this is going to be for whoever's filling out the survey. Really useful to give them an idea of what they've been asked to do, how long it's going to take, and maybe how long it will take them to get results back, that kind of thing. So here we're saying the survey is designed to get your thoughts about what you love about your school. So this might not be the most believable survey you'll ever put out there, but it gives us an idea for a start. You can also insert images, so if you wanted to put your school logo, a picture of the school, you can either upload that. Right now I'm just going to do a Bing search for a school building just so you can see what it looks like when it's in there. You can upload these from your OneDrive or your computer. So there we go, we've given it a title, we've given it a description, and we're just going to add our first question. Now in Forms there are several options for the different types of question you can get. Often the best way to create a form is to think about how you want to report your form. So what I mean by that is, what information do you need to get out of your form will kind of inform how you create your form in the first place. So for example, at the end of this exercise, would you want to break the information down by year groups, for example? Would you want to find out any more demographic information about where people live, that kind of thing? So you need to start building that into your form at the beginning. It's much easier to do this at the start than it is to try and break forms down by pupil year group, for example, if you haven't asked that question initially. So save yourself some time and make sure you're asking those demographic questions, usually in a kind of quantitative form. And what I mean by that is make sure it's more of a tick box that they have to hit as opposed to something they have to write, and that's much easier to break that down. We'll show you that in the first question we come to. So you get a few different choices of question here. You get a choice box, which is a multiple choice, a text response, which allows me to put in a text answer as opposed to a numerical answer. Ratings, which are really good, allows people to use like a little 5-star system if you like. Give it 1 out of 5 stars if you as a rating. You've got date fields as well as a couple of other ones there, such as Likert scale, which is a bit more involved, and we'll maybe cover that at the end. So again, most of the time we're going to stick to the top 4 ones that are there. They're pretty easy to use. So we're going to start here by asking pupils which year group they belong to. Again, this helps us with the demographic information, that if you want to find out what P1 said versus P2s, P3s, P4, P6, we can do that. And all you're doing is typing in the option and adding in more options if you need to. At the right hand side of every option you'll see a little recycle bin. If you click on that you can take an option away, or if an option doesn't exist and you need to put in an other option, you can do that. Now you can either set this to be required, which in this case I would recommend you do that, or if it's a multiple choice question but you envisage they'll have more than one answer, you can set it to multiple answers as well. Once you've completed that question and you're happy with that, just click on add new at the bottom to add your second question. Now this time we're going to try and give them a text response question. So at this point we're just asking them, what is your favourite thing about your school? And we've set this to a text question. Now we can either ask for a long answer, a short answer, and again we can insert a picture in here if we wanted to. And yeah, that's again about as involved as you need to get with that. And that would be a pretty straightforward text response. Now the next thing you could do is, once you're finished that, is continue to add in more questions. This time we'll try a rating scale. Now we can see here is how would you rate the school dinners or school lunches. Now again, these are just hypothetical questions, you don't have to be asking these. You can see we can change that rating level from 1 to 10, so how many stars would you give it? 5 stars, 10 stars, somewhere in between that. And we can change it to a number value as well if that's easier, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, how would you rate it? And again we can set that to being required if we want to. The final question I'm going to look at, just to give you an example of it, is a Likert scale question. This allows us to plot statements in rows versus answers in a column. So for example, I'm writing I love PE and I enjoy outdoor breaks as 2 of my questions, and the responses that I want to write, I want people to complete, would be at the top of this. So for example, this could be a true statement, could be a false statement, you don't agree with it, or you simply don't know. And again, we've got 5 options here, but you can add in more or delete options as required. So if you click on one, hit the recycle bin, and if you want to add more, hit the add button. Again, that's about as hard as it's going to get for creating a survey within Microsoft Forms. Very, very simple. It's all about the questions you want to ask and the way you want to report it. That's probably the 2 most important things, because if you don't have the right questions, you won't get the right answers. This is what a basic survey would look like without any themes being applied to it. So it's quite basic, there's nothing kind of glamorous about it. So these themes we can use to make it a little bit more engaging for pupils, and you just click through until you find one that you like. There are quite a few to choose from, which is good. So I'm just going to click this one at the bottom. And there we go, a theme has been selected, so it looks a little bit more engaging now. We can see our questions are appearing. We also have an immersive reader tool. If people click on the microphone a loudspeaker icon, it will actually read the questions to them. You could use these immersive reading tools with anyone who has, for example, a visual impairment, and that means that the questions will be read aloud to them. So we've got our questions, we've got our theme. The only thing we really need to do now is share the survey so that we can start to collect responses. That's where we use the share button. Now, the share button will give you access to creating a link or sending this out via email. One thing to note is the default position in this is that only people in your organisation can respond, and that would mean that only anyone who has a Glow account could respond to your survey. So if you want to send this to parents, we need to make sure that we change that to say anyone with this link can respond. Then all we need to do is copy that link and put it into any emails or put it on our website and people can complete it. If we have this linked up to our Outlook accounts, we can click on the email sign and that will allow us to send it straight from there. Or you can embed it as a QR code, or even embed it in your school website, as I've said. Once that link goes out, it's very easy for people just to click on it and complete their survey. I'm going to open a new window and just paste that in. And this is what it's going to look like when you send it out. So I'm going to just start completing it. I'm in P1, favourite thing about the school. Again, there's the immersive reader if we wanted to read them aloud. Favourite thing about the school, maybe you're saying something, maybe your pupils are really nice and they're going to say that the teaching staff are awesome. And again, with the school lunches, we can clearly see that it's a rating system here. You've got 5 stars, and you can give it out of 5 stars for that. The Likert scale question again allows us just to put in our answers there and submit, and that lets us know that that's been submitted, so they will know that that response has gone to the school and it's been collected. if we now go back to our survey, you can see we've got one response, and if we click on responses, it'll tell us the information there. Right now, 100% of the people who completed the survey were in P1, but we only have one response at the moment, so that's why we can see that. And we get a bit of a graphical breakdown there. Here's our responses. Teaching staff are awesome. They're giving the lunches 5 stars. And in terms of their questions about PE and outdoor learning, you can see they've answered those as well. You can even see individual responses. Here's the only response that's been completed. It's by someone anonymous because we never asked their name. It only took them 30 seconds to complete it. They're in P1, and again we can see all of the responses. So if you wanted an individual response, you could look at that as well. That is the long and short of forms. You could export all of this to Excel. Again, that's maybe if you want to do a bit more analysis, you can do that. I find that the generic template you get on forms is very, very good and gives us an overview of exactly what we need. So I tend not to go too far beyond that. Really, this is just about thinking about the right questions and planning your survey. Once you've completed your survey and sent it out, you can close down forms. When you come back into forms for the next time, you'll be greeted with this kind of home screen, and here you can see all of the surveys that I've been doing recently with education staff. You can also do quizzes, which follow a very similar format. It's just a case of creating your quiz and thinking about what you want to do with that there. Again, this is where you'll find all of the information. You can revisit any of the forms that you've created. You can look back at them. You can even copy them if you want to issue them and maybe make them slightly different for 2021, for example. You could do that. Here's some other surveys that I've created. They all follow the same format and they all give you the same way of pulling your data out. So they're all very, very useful. But that's just a quick overview of how the system works, how you can create a very quick survey, and how you can get it out to parents and staff using the quick share link. You can also very quickly turn your form or what you want to do into a quiz. Now, instead of selecting the form option, select quiz and just create your quiz in the same way that you would create a form. Give it a title, give it a description. The questions are more or less the same. The only difference now is that when you're creating a quiz, you'll have to select a correct answer and also assign a number of points to your quiz questions. So just like before, select a question type. Right now we're going to do a multiple choice, and we're going to put in here something like which subject is the best. It doesn't really matter what we're doing, it's just for illustration. Put in your questions, put in the answers that you think people might respond to, as well as the correct answer. And down the right hand side we can now see a small tick. That tick indicates which answer is the correct answer, and you can have obviously more than one correct answer. At the bottom left you're going to type in the number of points that you want to award. Now this just has to be a number that you put in there. We can make this a multiple answer question, and we can also make it required. So we'll just quickly add in a second question just by clicking the add button. And again, selecting the question type that you want to add, we can add in another choice question. And again, repeat the process, put in your answers, put in the correct answer using the tick, make it a multiple answer question or make it a required question. So for example, what year was the moon landing? I'm hoping this is the right answer. If I put 1969 as the top answer, and if people guess that correct, they'll get 1 point. And finally we could do the same with a text question. So in this question we're asking people who played Captain Jack Sparrow, with the right answer being Johnny Depp. So all we have to do is write a question, write your answer, and add that in at the bottom there. So we add in our correct answer using the plus button for add answer. And again, if we want to add more questions, we repeat this process as often as we need to until we've got our complete quiz. Once we've done that, you're going to want to set a theme if you want to make it look a bit more impressive, and we also need to share it with our pupils. Have a quick preview of the form just to make sure that the quiz is sitting the right way and the questions make sense. You can also change some of the settings in there. So for example, you can show the responses automatically once they complete it. You can decide who can fill it in. Please make sure that you tick the box to say that anyone can fill in the quiz if you're unsure if they'll be doing it through Glow. Otherwise you will be able to do it. You can also set a start date and an end date for the quiz, and you can add in a custom message to say thanks for taking the quiz if you want to. Sharing settings are exactly the same. You would just click on the share link, change it so that anyone can respond if they've got a link. You can drop this in your class team if you've got one in your Google Classroom or wherever you want to put it. Send it out an email. and if we just click some of these answers, we can give you an idea of how that data sits when we get a response back through. So just submitting that now, and then we need to go up to the response panel. Once we click on that, we'll see that we've got one response sitting in there. It also gives us that overview of how we did in the quiz. As you can see, not very well. And if we go back, we can have a look at the responses. Here they are. And we just get a little overview of how people have done in the quiz. Obviously, there's only one response so far, so it's not going to give you the best impression of that. The more people that respond to it, the more that'll look like a full chart. That brings us to the end of our overview of Microsoft Forms. Hope you found that useful, and thanks very much for your time.